Tonight, innocent claim. The brother of the accused Easy Street killer says it's all a big mistake. A worker rushed to hospital after being trapped and trampled by a herd of cows near Geelong. Joe Biden takes our PM and the other Quad leaders back to school. The president warning of the dangers posed by China. The cause of the deadly Singapore Airlines plunge revealed as an Australian woman who was left paralysed fights for compensation. Plus, the midwife who wants to be Lord Mayor. The Greens' Roxanne Ingleton makes her pitch in our special series Mayor Race 2024. And the inside word on the grand final entertainment. We have details of the secret negotiations over Katy Perry's pre-game set list.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. The brother of the man accused over the infamous Easy Street murders of 2 young women claims his sibling is innocent. Perry Corumbliss has been revealed as the alleged killer. His brother Tony telling Gillian Lantouris he's shocked by the news but believes the arrest is a mistake.
The brutal murders have gone unsolved for 47 years, but now we can reveal the identity of the man believed to be responsible. 65-year-old Perry Corumbliss was detained at an Italian airport after flying in from Greece. Police believe he stabbed Suzanne Armstrong and Susan Bartlett to death at their Collingwood home in 1977, leaving Miss Armstrong's 16-month-old son unharmed. His brother Tony speaking for the first time today.
Just numb. I was just shocked.
At the time of the murder, the brothers lived together on Bendigo Street, just a 350-metre walk from 147 Easy Street. Do you think your brother was capable of this?
I definitely don't think he's capable of doing anything like that.
The then 17-year-old was a student at Collingwood High School, where Susan Bartlett worked as an arts and craft teacher. Retired homicide detective Ron Iddles says he pulled over the suspect a week after the vicious crime, saying, "I searched the car and found a knife in the boot. I saw what I thought were bloodstains near the handle." Iddles handed the knife to detectives. In 2017, police reopened the case. Tony Corumbliss and other relatives provided detectives with a DNA sample. Perry said he'd do the same, but instead fled to Athens.
If he was going to hide too, he wouldn't have stayed here for 40 years plus after that.
If somebody wanted to rule themselves out of an investigation and they are in fact innocent, then donating your DNA is an exclusionary measure.
The investigation began here at Collingwood Police Station. It's now moved half a world away to Italy. The homicide squad has 45 days to present a brief of evidence to an Italian court, and they will decide whether or not the man is extradited back to Australia.
This is going to be a protracted process going forward. It's certainly not over.
Gillian Lantouris, 9 News.
To developing news now, and a Geelong worker has been rushed to hospital after he was crushed by a herd of cows. Penelope Learsh has the details. Penny, how did this happen?
Well, Peter, it was in Corio at an abattoir there around 2 o'clock this afternoon that it's understood this man in his 20s was inside a cattle truck when he was injured by the cattle there. He suffered serious injuries to his upper body. Paramedics attended. They managed to treat him inside that truck before transporting him in an ambulance here to Melbourne, to the Royal Melbourne Hospital, in a serious but stable condition where he is being treated for those injuries to his upper body. WorkSafe has been notified, Peter. Inspectors will determine if there is any further action needed. OK,
thank you, Penelope Learsh. President Joe Biden has been caught in a hot mic moment, declaring China is testing Australia, America, India and Japan. Anthony Albanese joined other leaders at the president's old high school, saying the alliance can stand the test of time. Jonathan Kersley reports.
The Quad Squad unite. The president declaring this alliance is here to stay.
The Quad, will it survive regardless of the outcome?
Joe Biden has said all politics is personal, and this summit was, hosting leaders at his old high school in Delaware.
I'm absolutely certain that my headmaster would be shocked that I find myself here as well.
China was the focus.
Challenges will come, the world will change, because the Quad is here to stay.
After cameras stopped rolling, Joe Biden said the quiet part out loud.
China continues to behave aggressively, testing us all across the region. And it's true in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, South Asia, and the Taiwan Straits.
And of China's president,
he's also looking to buy himself some diplomatic space, in my view, to aggressively pursue China's interest.
Philippine Coast Guard vessels were recently rammed by China. Next year, Australian Border Force will join with Coast Guards from Japan and India on American ships in the South China Sea, and there'll be more to tackle illegal fishing.
The sum of the four countries is more than any individual nation can do.
The Quad offered health help too to prevent cervical cancer in the Indo-Pacific, and Twiggy Forrest is chipping in.
There's truly nothing beyond our capacity when we act together.
So the Quad stands here united, sending a strong message from here on Joe Biden's home turf. The US president wants this alliance to be part of his legacy. Come next year's meeting, he and at least one other leader will no longer be part of this family. Mr. President, is this a tough goodbye?
Never goodbye. He's at the end of the telephone. I get easy.
Is it a tough goodbye for the Quad for you, Mr. President? Will you be sad to no longer be part of it?
I'm still going to see these guys. I'm not going away.
In Delaware, Jonathan Kersley, 9 News. The Wilmington Declaration the leaders signed up to did not mention the Chinese government by name. It talked about peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. But the Quad Leaders Summit was set up to deal with the challenges posed by Beijing in waters much closer to Australia's backyard. What the US president has done in this hot mic moment is send a very clear warning to Anthony Albanese and the other Quad leaders about the dangers he believes China poses now and into the future, long after he stops being America's president. From here, 3 of the Quad leaders now head to New York for the United Nations High-Level Leaders Week. Joe Biden, Fumio Kishida of Japan and Narendra Modi of India. Anthony Albanese has opted not to attend those talks, instead deciding to return home to deal with domestic issues.
A woman who was paralysed after a deadly Singapore Airlines mid-air emergency has spoken about the ordeal and her fight for compensation. It follows an investigation that's uncovered new information showing the incident could have been avoided. Beth Excel reports.
In 4 frantic seconds, Kerry Jordan's life changed forever.
I remember hearing a man ask me, "Can you feel your legs?" And just the reality of, no, can't feel that.
Kerry and husband Keith Davis were travelling home to Australia from the UK on board Singapore Airlines Flight 321 in May when the plane struck severe turbulence. A violent and terrifying altitude drop sending Kerry and dozens of others flying out of their seats.
People seriously thought we were all going down.
Yeah.
We thought we'd hit something. It was that violent.
You thought you were about to die?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
4 months on, the dance teacher remains paralysed from the chest down. She's still living in a hospital and staring down a long road to recovery. It's a life-changing event that a special investigation by 9's 60 Minutes reveals could potentially have been avoided.
This analysis that we'll show you tonight is clearly evidence of is that flight SQ321 flew directly into the path of a developing thunderstorm.
Kerry and Keith are now working with former Senator and lawyer Nick Xenophon. He's campaigning for better compensation, saying the $75,000 so far offered by the airline adds insult to injury.
Singapore Airlines is an airline that last year made close to $3 billion in profit, and they need to explain why they won't do everything possible to make sure that Kerry is looked after for the rest of her life.
The full investigation will be aired on 60 Minutes tonight. Beth Excel, 9 News.
A much-loved grandfather has been identified as the man who was shot dead during a hunting trip in Gippsland. 64-year-old Albert Miller was with a group of people yesterday when he was fatally shot in the chest. It's believed the shooting was an accident. Australians like their beer cold, and one political leader is now offering to freeze the price. The Nationals are hinting at a change to alcohol taxes as mortgage holders and renters hold their breaths on interest rates. Political editor Charles Croucher.
If the cost of living is driving Australians to drink, the cost of booze is driving the Coalition to think.
Where we can alleviate some pressure, particularly when there's a cost of living crisis at the moment.
Alcohol excise is levied on beer and spirits, with higher alcohol content resulting in higher tax. The figure goes up with inflation every 6 months, the Coalition contemplating a pause to freeze prices.
When they don't have the disposable income and then you continue to tax, it makes it even harder for them to come out, not just to have a beer, but to have a meal.
Cheaper medicines, not cheaper beer, is the focus of this government.
Tonight, that's left hotels at a tipping point. But the biggest help for pubs and patrons would be an interest rate cut. We'll learn a lot this week. Tomorrow, final budget numbers are released with a larger surplus, and the Reserve Bank meets, with an interest rate decision on Tuesday and monthly inflation data out Wednesday. Some economists tipping the rate will be back within the RBA's target of 2 to 3%.
Whether it's the high twos or the low threes, what we've seen over a period of time now is inflation's come off quite substantially.
That's unlikely to mean a cut this week, the Governor warning.
The board does not expect it will be in a position to cut rates in the near term.
While the Reserve Bank is talking tough, the markets and many here at Parliament are optimistic that rate cuts are coming, with 2 meetings in the lead-up to Christmas.
From time to time, we'll have slightly different perspectives, but overall we're on the same page.
The RBA are constrained by the circumstances they're dealt. I'd love to see the cut. I'm no economist, but I'll believe it when I see it if one does come.
Charles Croucher, 9 News.
Swans and Lions fans of old have joined in the grand final excitement as the 2 relocation clubs prepare to do battle for footy's greatest prize. Both teams have their roots here in Melbourne, with fans joining in the rush for tickets to the big match. Penelope Leash has more.
Roaring into the grand final in a thriller.
Lions! We're from Geelong! Stop the cutters!
The game now is tickets. Fans queuing straight off the win.
Up until about 3, the adrenaline was still rushing and watching the highlights on the phone.
When I was there last year, and I want to make sure I'm there this year to get the win.
Chris Walkley took up his position at 6 a.m. Thursday.
Got the swag, sleeping bag and pillow in there, so it's been actually not too bad at nights.
It's a bit colder in Bendigo, where Peter Dell's hoping for a ticket to his 72nd grand final.
Friday night was absolutely freezing, but it's all worth it. It's great if your own team's playing, but it's just got to be there.
Peter caught the premiership bug in 1954 when Footscray beat Melbourne. Since then, he's only missed one, making it to Brisbane in the COVID era, just not Perth.
I didn't get 70 in a row, but this will be 72 and it's great.
While there's no Victorian teams in this year's grand final, of course both have their roots here. The Swans in South Melbourne, and the Lions' history harks back to Fitzroy. Nowhere is there more of that history than at the club's private museum at Marvel, chronicling from the first days of Fitzroy back in 1897.
This is a pictorial montage of, believe it or not, 1,157 players that played for the Fitzroy Football Club,
which became the Bears and now the Brisbane Lions. There's just one Premiership Cup missing from the archive. It's in Brisbane, from the last time Fitzroy and South Melbourne met.
Fitzroy won by a point, so it'd be great if we can emulate that feat 125 years later.
South Melbourne legend Peter Bedford hoping it's a different omen.
It should be a great contest, and hopefully we can just have our noses in front when the final siren sounds.
First, though, the 1970 Brownlow medalist will be at the count tomorrow night, where Patrick Cripps is high on his list.
When you're a chance, it's always good fun, but Nick Dacos, Lachie Neale, Bonapelli, Sarong, I just hope the count's close for everyone.
Penelope Leash, 9 News.
And here now with more on the build-up to the grand final, Clint Stanaway.
Pete, thank you so much. Tonight, brace yourself. Exclusive details right now about Katy Perry's Game Day Spectacular from our chief footy reporter, or maybe I should say chief entertainment reporter, Tom Morris. Tom.
Clint, I'm no Richard Wilkins, but I've got the inside word on Katy Perry's set list. What's really interesting are the negotiations between her management and the AFL. Now, Perry's camp was pushing for not one, but 2 new tunes from the new album, but the AFL made it abundantly clear they wanted none, just her classics. So where do they land? There'll be 1 new song. The rest her biggest hits. But in news that could devastate her fans, there are some doubts whether Raw will feature, so we'll have to wait and see for next Saturday. What is a touch ironic, given the Lions are featuring in the grand final, is the fact that Raw might not be in it, Clint.
Can't believe it. Well done. Thanks for the scoop, Tom Morris. Also coming up, a hero's welcome for the Swans as they gear up for the biggest week of their lives.
Just soak it all in as much as you can, and I think with our preparation and going into the games, I think you just got to realise the grand final is a different beast.
Why the Lions are jetting to Melbourne a little earlier than usual. Chris Scott's regret after the one that got away. Carey goes bang as the Aussies take care of business again. And the quick time goal that had Ange thinking the worst. Plus, there's been a nail-biting finish to the VFL Grand Final. Pete, no Katy Perry Raw? What's the world coming to?
I don't know.
Hopefully she plays your favourite hot and cold.
Right, OK, thank you, Clint. Now, when 9 News Melbourne returns, the Premier pushing for more high-rise hubs in the suburbs as our population swells. Ukraine strikes back, hitting a Russian weapons depot, sparking an inferno. And a parade of paratroopers marks the 80th anniversary of a daring World War II mission. A man has died after he was struck by 2 cars in Croydon. The unidentified pedestrian was hit at the intersection of Lansdale Avenue and Dorset Road. Both drivers escaped injury and stopped at the scene. They're helping police with their investigation. The Allen government is aiming to double the number of suburbs where high-rise towers can be built as part of its plan to increase housing density. But the plan's been slammed by the opposition, with claims it was Labor that caused the housing crisis in the first place. Laura Turner reports.
Opening the government's new social housing development in North Melbourne. Absolutely brilliant. The Housing Minister refusing to be drawn on how far the state government will expand its suburban high-rise plan.
There will be further work to announce how we can continue to grow those activity centres. I'm looking forward to sharing that work.
News the Premier wants to potentially double suburban high-rise builds, drawing cries of hypocrisy.
This government has not only demonised development, when you do that, you deny people homes.
10 so-called activity centres already exist in Ringwood, Essendon North, Broadmeadows, Preston, Camberwell Junction, Chadstone, Frankston, Epping, Moorabbin and Niddrie. They're places where the government is building dense housing around business and transport hubs, dramatically transforming the way those suburbs look and operate. There is no confirmation as yet as to how many more of these developments there will be or even where they will go. But the one thing demographers say is certain is that they will be expensive.
It is more expensive to build up for the developer, so they will quote you square metre prices that are probably 4 to 5 times, if not more, expensive in a high-rise compared to a greenfield.
I would say to anybody who is asking about the cost of investment in building up rather than out to look at what we do need to make sure is part of that planning in a preemptive, proactive way.
It also means a move away from the picket fence and backyard synonymous with the Australian identity.
We need to make sure that we have enough facilities there in order to still man a decent cricket team in the future.
Laura Turner, 9 News.
Israel claims it's almost completely dismantled Hezbollah's leadership after a strike in Beirut killed nearly 40 people. The two sides have exchanged more cross-border fire as world leaders plead for the violence to end. Hannah Sinclair with today's developments.
Another day and night of intense crossfire. Israel and Hezbollah ramping up their strikes on each other's people and weapons after a devastating week for Lebanon. As search and rescue crews sift through rubble in Beirut's south. After the deadliest strike to hit the city since 2006. The IDF posting on social media, Hezbollah's military chain of command has been almost completely dismantled after a dozen significant terrorists, including Ibrahim Akil, were eliminated. More bloodshed in Gaza too, after an Israeli airstrike on a school killed more than 20 people. The IDF claims it was being used as a Hamas command centre as Israel and Lebanon's representatives traded verbal blows at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. Isn't this terrorism when you target a whole population while they tend to their daily life while they are not fighting on the front? Lebanon's foreign minister says.
We will not allow Hezbollah's terror to dictate the future of our nation.
In London, Hannah Sinclair, 9 News.
A massive fireball has erupted in Russia after an ammunition and missile depot caught fire during an attack. The massive blaze triggering an evacuation of the surrounding area. The Kremlin claims it shot down 100 Ukrainian drones over its territory. Hundreds of paratroopers have dropped from a plane to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. The mission to seize key bridges ultimately failed, but was one of World War II's most daring plans. Several World War II veterans were among the 60,000 spectators. Stephanie Anderson's here now with the latest on the weather. Steph, how's the week ahead looking?
Well, cloudy for the first part, Pete, but then the sun should ramp up right where we want it to for grand final weekend. But overcast skies were the order of the day today, although there were more regular breaks of blue than yesterday. From a low of 12 degrees, the city peaked at 20 just after 4 this afternoon. A cold front sitting to our south has continued moving east today, and tonight a weak system is heading towards us, but it shouldn't get too chilly overnight with our cloudy skies acting as a bit of a blanket. They should allow some spots of sunshine through tomorrow morning, then thicken up again into the afternoon. I'll have all the details for you a little later in the bulletin, Pete.
OK, thank you, Steph. Coming up, the midwife who wants to be Lord Mayor. Alicia Loxley speaks to Green Roxanne Ingleton to kick off our Town Hall election series. Also ahead, a machete-wielding man arrested following a siege in Richmond. And a pilot held hostage by Papuan rebels for 19 months, finally heading home.
Big retail push to go paperless.
I'm happy with the email receipts. The less paper, the better.
Now, the pushback against data trap transactions.
Extra personal information when you're just buying something over the counter.
It's a rich environment for growing databases.
9 News, your news tomorrow at 6.
A man who was brandishing 2 machetes has been arrested in Richmond after a standoff with police. The critical incident response team shut down Erin Street after reports of a resident who'd been damaging property. That led to a siege situation, officers eventually detaining the 47-year-old after he came outside. He was taken to hospital for assessment. A rideshare driver has been threatened with a knife in an attempted carjacking in Melbourne's Outer West. The 34-year-old pulled up on a Rockbank road to let his 2 passengers out just before 1 this morning. The duo demanded he hand over his car and phone, and the victim was slashed in the hand but managed to get away. The offenders remain on the run. 9 News is going behind the scenes in the tussle for Town Hall, meeting the men and women vying to be our next Lord Mayor. Tonight, Alicia Loxley kicks off our series, speaking to Greens candidate Roxanne Ingleton, the midwife who wants the city's top job.
It would be an unconventional career leap, midwife to Lord Mayor. But the Greens pick, Roxanne Ingleton, believes she's well placed to deliver something special.
Well, I have been a midwife for the last 10 years. And I did have a life before that.
Ingleton's life began on the living room floor of her family's Clifton Hill home. Planned, not an accident. And perhaps an early indicator, she too would go on to deliver babies both in homes and hospitals.
Watching families be born, it's not just babies, it's the families. So, you know, especially those first-time parents, when they go from being a couple to a family, it's really special.
But that's not all that's on the unionist's CV.
I have worked in business, I've worked in sales, I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in customer service. I'm not a one-trick pony, and even being a midwife is not being a one-trick pony.
Nor is being Lord Mayor, and Roxanne Ingleton is baffled her rivals are so keen to talk down the city she loves.
I think that rhetoric about the city being, dead or under threat, I think that's really unhelpful.
Hey Charlotte. How you going?
Good, how are you?
Not bad. The dog's going to come out.
Hi darling.
This is where Roxy, as she's known to family and friends, is happiest, spending time in her local community, Errol Street, North Melbourne, her local strip. She not only lives but works in the electorate and believes that gives her a winning edge. Her plans are big and broad: fewer high-rise towers, more affordable housing, more parks, open space, and as a dedicated e-scooter rider, many more bike lanes. Ingleton also wants council given the power to decide on a second injecting room. As for any future weapons expos, they would not be welcome.
It was pretty upsetting, the footage that I saw, and the violence that I saw was not coming from the protesters.
On first preferences, the Greens came second last time around in 2020, with Ingleton as deputy on the ticket, polling just over 14,700 votes, 13,000 behind the winning ticket of Sally Capp and Nick Rees, but ahead of Team Aaron Wood by more than 1,200 votes. It's a unique voting system. Businesses get 2 votes while residents only get 1, something the Greens candidate wants overhauled, along with the conversation around what a future Melbourne should look like.
I just think we've got such big things coming for Melbourne with the population boom that's expected. We can't end up with another Docklands. We can't have a city that's just built for offices. We need to have a city that's built for people.
Postal ballots will go out in early October, the result declared on November 15. Alicia Loxley, 9 News.
And current Lord Mayor Nick Rees says he wants to green our city if re-elected, announcing plans for 28 parks across Melbourne over the next 4 years. His vision would deliver a new green space in nearly every city neighbourhood. The green plan would cost more than $40 million, with some parks already budgeted for. A New Zealand pilot released after being held hostage for more than a year in Papua, in the Papua region of Indonesia, has reunited with his family in Jakarta. The Christchurch man is believed to be in good health despite being held captive by separatist rebels for 592 days. Firefighters are warning about lithium-ion battery fires, with call-outs happening on almost a daily basis. Now there's a new concern about how to deal with blazes on the ships that bring them here. Meg Sides explains.
Explosive, toxic, radiating extreme heat. These are fires caused by lithium-ion batteries.
The fires we're encountering almost on a daily basis are from our smaller e-scooters, e-bikes type of batteries.
And when thousands are packed together, the risk is even greater.
They are packed in like sardines inside a tin, except these are very dangerous sardines. You can't put them out. So you can imagine it on the street if you can't put them out. Imagine them on a vessel out at sea or in a port.
Ships are the most common way they're transported, including the ones inside electric vehicles.
If you think about big container ships, they carry up to 2,000 containers. We don't know what's in them half the time. The problem's real. It's here now.
In 2022, a cargo ship carrying luxury vehicles, including EVs, sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Last year, a fire on this ship led to the death of a crew member.
We had what was a vapour cloud explosion in the headspace of that ruptured the fire main for the ship, so the ship's crew couldn't actually fight fires from thereafter. And actually prevent them getting back to the lifeboats.
There are growing concerns across the globe about the dangers of EV fires on ships, but right now there are no formal safety protocols or guidelines in place detailing how to deal with them when they happen.
We need to get some plans in place quickly, even if it's just what's the initial response.
That's what this summit is hoping to achieve, gathering experts in the field to formulate a plan. Meg Sides, 9 News.
Still ahead in the news, the shingles vaccine now available to more Australians free. We'll tell you who qualifies. Plus, the Kiwi code hopper daring to dream of a premiership with the Storm. Three thieves armed with a crowbar and machete are on the run after a string of robberies in Brisbane. The rampage saw the group kick in a locked door before demanding cigarettes, cash, a car and a worker's wedding ring. It's believed the same group targeted a bakery, a shopping centre and a tobacconist. More than 200,000 Australians will now be eligible for the free shingles vaccine after the federal government expanded the program. Josephine Shannon explains.
26-year-old Cherise Hellier has lived with multiple autoimmune diseases nearly all her life.
I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis and psoriatic arthritis when I was just 4 years old.
They're conditions that come with a range of problems, but also leave her exposed to a common and potentially dangerous infection.
If I were to develop shingles, it would significantly impact me and my life. My body won't fight it.
Until now, Cherise would have needed to pay $560 to protect herself against the disease. But from this month, that changes.
We've added an additional entitlement to a free Shingrix vaccine to Australians who are living with a moderate compromise to their immunity.
Previously, the free vaccine was only available to those over 65, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people over 50, and adults with weakened immune systems who were considered high risk. The Health Minister says since the vaccine was made free for over 65s last November, there's been significant demand and at times not enough supply.
We were a bit overwhelmed, and I had to go and ensure that we sourced another 750,000 doses of the vaccine in very quick time to deal with what had become a shortage.
This time the government says it's prepared.
Given the popularity of this program, we've been watching very closely to make sure that we don't get caught again with a shortage.
Patients who think they may be eligible should book an appointment with their GP. Josephine Shannon, 9 News.
Will Warbrick grew up kicking an Aussie rules footy in New Zealand. Now he's scoring rugby league tries in AFL Heartland. Along the way, the code-skipping Melbourne Storm winger also won an Olympic medal. But as he told Trent Neese, his heart is now set on NRL Premiership glory.
Growing up in New Zealand, Aussie rules isn't the first choice of sport for many youngsters. Just ask Will Warbrick.
Back then, it was unknown to me. It was pretty foreign, and not many people know about it, really, if I'm being honest.
In 2016, Will was part of a representative New Zealand side that took on the AFL Academy team. Some of those players he played against include Darcy Fogarty, Jack Higgins, Jaden Stevenson, and even Luke Davies-Uniacke. Making it to the AFL was a serious reality for Will.
I think at first it was a little bit of a dream. I was like, imagine if I could become an AFL player or whatnot.
But the pull of rugby was strong.
Every Kiwi wants to be an All Black or a rugby player.
After giving Aussie rules the flick, Warbrick accepted an offer to join New Zealand's Rugby 7 side. And it was a pretty successful stint, winning silver for his country at the Tokyo Olympics.
You don't realise you won silver. It's sort of like you lost and you got silver. So I think for a bit of time, heading back home with family and friends and seeing how proud they were, it makes you realise how special it is to actually have a silver medal.
Following that Olympics campaign, Will again decided to jump codes, finding his way onto the list at the Melbourne Storm.
Hughes kicking for Warbrick. There's space. Oh, it's on point.
I'll never forget what Craig said to me. He believed I could become an NRL player, and that's all I needed to hear to make me sign the contract.
From playing AFL in Rugby Heartland to Rugby League in AFL territory, Will's journey is now complete.
Where I come from, like my hometown, there's not too many stories like this in terms of people, finding, I guess, a bit of success, especially in the sporting world. So it's this is like my new home now. I feel so comfortable here.
Despite Will's achievements to date, there is still one thing missing from his resume, that being an NRL premiership. He and his Storm teammates get the chance to make a grand final should they win here at Amy Park in this week's preliminary final. And after last year's heartbreak in the prelim final, there's a real sense of added motivation this year.
I'm usually a guy that tries to stay cool and calm, throughout the week and until the game, but you can't hide the fact that we got a big game here at home. Pretty much one win away from a grand final.
Trent Neese, 9 News.
Now here with more sport, Clint Stanaway.
Hello again, Pete. Thanks for that. After the break, live to Tom Morris on the big calls facing the Cats, plus a big turnout in Sydney as the Swans skipper pushes for a grand final recall. The Tigers do it for Victoria in a grand final for the ages, and Carey's starring role in an Aussie domination over the old enemy. Sydney fans have given their heroes an early rev-up as the Swans prepare to return to the big stage for the second time in 3 years. But Livewire Chad Warner admits it's a whole new ball game and they've got the memories to prove it as well. Trent Neese explains.
Back on the biggest stage football has to offer, the Swans Army were loud and proud at today's open training.
Just soak it all in as much as you can, and I think with our preparation and going into the games, I think you just got to realise the grand final is a different beast.
Warner and co know how different grand final day is all too well. An 81-point loss in their last grand final outing. A lot's been learnt since.
I think we've got a lot more experience, and a lot of boys have played a lot of footy together now, which obviously helps us.
It was Sydney-based fans' last chance to catch the team before they fly down to Melbourne later this week.
Are you going to go down to Melbourne?
Yeah, we're heading down on Thursday.
You must be so excited.
Yeah.
The passion and the love that the Swans fans have had for us this year has been second to none, and hopefully we see them all down in Melbourne this week, obviously. But yeah, it's so great for New South Wales footy as well.
An interstate showdown now locked in for the last Saturday in September, the first since 2006, although that wasn't a year to remember for the red and white. And it may be a week to forget for the skipper, Callum Mills. He's in a race against time to play in his third grand final as he's currently battling a hamstring strain.
It's going well. We'll see how the week plans out.
He's just so proud of us boys and hopefully can be a part of it.
Brodie Grundy also returns to the biggest stage in footy, and it could be said he's hungrier than ever before.
I'm still pinching myself, to be honest. Just coming from a space of gratitude and just feeling really, privileged and really fortunate to be in this position.
Trent Neese, 9 News.
Well, Brisbane will hightail it here to Melbourne on Wednesday, a day early, as they set their sights on erasing last year's grand final heartbreak. And with the Swans to start warm favourites next Saturday, Lions hero Cam Rayner says they're relishing the underdog status. It's the goal which brought unbridled joy to Brisbane.
Don't have a shot for goal to the left. Cam Rayner's got it.
And for the man who sealed the deal, it was a feeling like no other.
Still feeling pretty good, pretty happy and excited for the week to come.
In a tough and tight contest, Cam Rayner proved a match breaker. And while exercising the demons of last September as part of it, he's choosing to look forward.
We've got such a great support crew in Brisbane and in Fitzroy, and hopefully they can all come together this weekend and we can celebrate with them.
If Rayner is one of this week's feel-good stories, Oscar McInerney is the heartbreak tale. The coach put a line through him after last night's win.
When you've double dislocated your shoulder in a preliminary final, you're not going to be playing in the grand final.
Still, there's so much to like about the Lions right now. A campaign which could easily have ended last weekend against the Giants when they found themselves 44 points down.
If you had have said to me at the halfway mark of the season we're going to be playing in the grand final at the end of the year, I probably would have said you're crazy.
As for Geelong, an off-season of pondering what might have been awaits. The coach revealing COVID and gastro battles in the lead-up to last night's match, one which signalled the end for retiring champs Tom Hawkins and Zach Toohey.
Pulls at the heartstrings, makes just when you don't think you could feel any worse, you start thinking about that stuff.
But this moment belongs to the Lions and their proudest supporters.
Holy cow! How to give your mother a heart attack? Oh my God!
It's going to be a sleepless week. At the Cattery, the attention has now turned to list management and finding a way to land Bulldog Bailey Smith. Live with those details to Chief Footy reporter Tom Morris. Tom, they've got a bit of work to do.
Yeah, they do. Well, I think Smith happens, but it's nothing Geelong haven't dealt with before, Clint. The Cats were the second oldest this year. They were the most experienced club as well. Zach Toohey and Tom Hawkins have retired, but Patrick Dangerfield looks set for a fresh 2-year deal. That's what he was holding off for. Now, Reece Stanley, who missed the goal late last night, and Mitch Duncan, who is the sub, are expected to go around again. Gary Rowan's future will become more clear in the next few days, I'd imagine. And Brandon Parfitt fell out of favour and his future is likely to be elsewhere. I mentioned Dangerfield earlier on. He wouldn't have missed this year's grand final anyway for that tackle. He's been handed a fine for that tackle on Hugh McCluggage. Meanwhile, Brisbane's Eric Hipwood can count himself somewhat lucky, I reckon. He's also been fined for rough conduct on Jack Henry. And Clint, if you thought the Katy Perry news was big, we've got plenty of fireworks on Footy Furnace tonight. We go inside the Lions camp with Danny Daly, their footy boss. We dissect both prelim finals. We look ahead to next Saturday with Jimmy Bartell and Lee Matthews, both in the studio.
Tommy Wilkins, thank you very much. Well, Werribee is the pride of the VFL after claiming a second premiership, downing Southport by 6 points in today's grand final. The Tigers setting up the win with a 4-goal third quarter, and there was jubilation at that final siren too. Cat star Sean Manor presented the Norm Goss medal to Werribee's Jack Henderson after his 22 touches and 2 goals. And in the AFLW, Collingwood has fallen to the bottom of the ladder after a disastrous 42-point thumping at the hands of the Bulldogs.
Weston Turner, can she bend this one round the corner? Oh, a bit of magic from Weston Turner. That's why she was a #1 draft pick.
Ladder leader Adelaide took down the Bombers by 33, while in the Battle of the Bridge it was the Swans over the Giants by just 3 points. Melbourne Storm's path to the NRL decider is a lot clearer tonight, with the side to face the Sydney Roosters on Friday night. It'll be the club's 9th prelim final in 10 years, and with no Victorian teams left in the AFL, the Storm want to capitalise.
This is an opportunity for, maybe those people in Melbourne that maybe not be passionate NRL supporters, but they're passionate about their Melbourne teams, and we're representing Melbourne, so we expect a sellout on Friday night.
There'll be live coverage on 9 straight after the news on Friday night. Overseas now, and Alex Carey has powered Australia to a 68-run win over England in the second one-dayer. Returning to national duties for the first time in 6 months, Carey blasted 74 as the Aussies claimed a 14th straight limited overs win.
I was very excited to get over here. Not that I wanted to get away from the family, but to come back and play some cricket. The break's been great, like I said.
And a netball boil-over with the Diamonds losing to the England Roses 61 goals to 59 today in Sydney. Ange Postecoglou's Spurs were forced to recover from a woeful start, conceding a goal inside the first 22 seconds against Brentford.
And they've done it again here. Incredible. Brian and Bumo. And they have shocked Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
But the home side did bounce back to win 3-1. Liverpool moved to the top of the ladder for now with a 3-0 win over Bournemouth. But Manchester United's indifferent start to the new season continues, sharing the points in a 0-0 draw with Crystal Palace. Oscar Piastri will start tonight's Singapore Grand Prix from 5th as he looks to go back-to-back for the first time in his short career. But the pressure is mounting on his fellow countryman Daniel Ricciardo, who could be without an F1 seat after this race as he struggles to make an impact.
Yeah, today wasn't good. We thought obviously quali would get it sorted, and we didn't. So yeah, that wasn't fun.
Lando Norris, by the way, will start on pole. That is Sunday night sport for you, Pete.
OK, thank you, Clint. Stephanie Anderson returns now with the weather details. Steph, we can expect more cloudy weather tomorrow.
Yeah, we can, Pete, but the sun should peek through here and there, particularly in the morning. I'll have the details for you next.
Can she crack a gangland secret worth killing for?
Who's the real target?
Human error. Wednesday, 8:40 on 9.
Hello again. Overall, it's been a pretty grey Sunday, but we did see more breaks of blue peeking through the clouds than yesterday. From a low of 12, the city reached 20 degrees just after 4 this afternoon. It was a milder Sunday morning across the suburbs too. Most spots started the day in double figures, then peaked in the high teens and low 20s. There were similar maximums further out, and skies were dry almost right across the board. A cold front sitting to our south has continued moving east today. Another weaker front moves across tomorrow, but our cloudy skies should prevent temperatures from getting too chilly overnight. Meanwhile, a humid, unstable air mass sitting over parts of WA and the Northern Territory should deliver widespread storms and up to 100 millimetres of rain to that part of the country tomorrow. Further south from there, a sunny top of 23 is expected in Perth, partly cloudy and 19 degrees for Adelaide, and blue skies in Sydney heading for 27. Back home, patchy morning fog and frost is expected in the northwest of the state. Then the forecast is looking mostly cloudy and dry. Maximums should hit the high teens and low 20s, a little warmer in the Mallee. Closer in, a milder morning is expected across the suburbs with some sunny breaks through the clouds in the morning. Then as that cover builds into the afternoon, maximums of 18, 19 and 20 degrees are expected. Cooler in Ferny Creek, 15. There's the chance of a late morning shower in Geelong, dipping to 11, then heading for 19 tomorrow. The same temperatures are expected in the city with the slight chance of a shower in the afternoon. It should be a little warmer and cloudier on Tuesday, dipping to 11, then heading for 23 degrees under northerly winds. Rain is expected to arrive on Wednesday, up to 15 millimetres in the city, and quite chilly under southwesterly winds, a top of 15 degrees. Thursday should start quite fresh under cloudy skies, a maximum of 14. But then the sun kicks in for the public holiday on Friday, heading for 19 under partly cloudy skies. Grand final day is looking like the clear pick of the week though. Sunny, a top of 24 and settled. Then a front is expected to move in later in the day next Sunday, 20 degrees with showers developing. Tomorrow we can expect more cloudy skies. From a low of 11, the city should peak at 19 degrees with cloud increasing and the chance of a shower in the afternoon. So for the parents ready to tackle day one of school holidays, my hot tip, Pete, is get out in the morning.
All right, thank you very much, Steph. And Melbourne, that's what's news this Sunday. Enjoy your evening and good night.